Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Philline, a podcast where we talk about what it's like being in your 20s in the 20s. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I think is important to talk about, especially in our 20s and especially with what's going on in this country right now, and that is practicing self-awareness and actively making the choice to be a better person. So let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to the second episode of Philline this year. Before I get started, I just want to say that this week was so full of birthdays, so I wanted to wish the very best birthdays for my sister, my mom, my best friend Chloe, and my best friend Jess. Happy birthday to you guys. Now, for this year specifically, one of the big things I do want to work on is focusing on self-awareness. And that is kind of learning and being aware of how I feel and being in the moment and remediating the stereotypes that I'm automatically thinking about just from how I was raised and how media portrays things and how other people portray things. It's about being aware of the fact that you're thinking a certain way and your motives are a certain way. And before I kind of talk about that, it's been a crazy week in the US, especially in Washington right now. There's a lot of rioting, a lot of scary things. People basically broke into the Senate building, and it was right after Trump held a march. And it's just all scary. Someone got shot there and they died. And I think there's 4 deaths so far. And it's just scary because it's something that's been building not just the past 4 years, but I think exponentially getting worse the past 4 years. And I'm honestly scared, especially for these upcoming 4 years and just how already people are reacting to the election results. And I'm scared for future generations because this country honestly lacks positivity and unity. And there's so much work still left to be done. Honestly, a lot to blame is social media and media in general and what the news are portraying based on how they feel about things. And we're practically brainwashed by what we choose to see or what we prefer to watch on media. And I think media in general just needs to be fixed. There needs to be more pure, genuine honesty. And I think that it's just getting worse on social media. I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm only one person, but there's so much that has to be done to fix these issues. And media is so powerful. It has a chokehold on this country, and not just in swaying them in one direction. I mean, you could go on one side of the country and see people's opinions one way and then go to another part of the country, the same country, and they think something completely different. So I don't know. I feel like this is one downside of how media is affecting us, and I'm just worried about it. I feel like it is causing a greater gap in this country that now is kind of coming into light more and more as the years pass, as we have more time to focus on them. There is a lot of separation in this country that, although we can't change right away with the snap of our fingers, we are now more aware, and now there's a lot more awareness about it and action that is trying to be done to fix the problems. And now, besides that, I definitely want to focus on being self-aware because there can be so much done for ourselves that can be extended out to the people around us and then extended to the people around them. It's this butterfly effect of just a more positive self-awareness and understanding of ourselves and the people around us. So first, self-awareness. What is it exactly? One definition I read was 1, being mindful of not just your thoughts, but how your actions can affect someone else's emotions and happiness. Debbie Ford defined it as the ability to take an honest look at your life without attachment to it being right or wrong. Now, these are both very right definitions of self-awareness, and I can't even really define it myself without looking at other people's definitions because self-awareness is very deep in terms of what it is and what is involved in self-awareness, right? But what I can gather is Self-awareness is honestly just two words: paying attention. It's not living life automatically and not following stereotypes and thinking that you were raised in and automatically thinking that it's one way. It's being aware of the situation and practicing your best habits, motives, actions, following the self-realization of your emotions and the truth. And self-awareness is hard, right? Because it's not a skill that we're taught in school at all. Self-awareness is kind of dependent on what you practice for yourself and you actively engage in, as well as your social skills. Everyone is different. And that's kind of the hard part of self-awareness. It's that it's not something that's taught to you. So it's something that you continuously have to pay attention to and engage and be aware of everything that's going on. And in an article that I was reading, America, even in 2020, is still having difficulty being in the top 10 happiest countries in the world, which I think is crazy because the US is probably one of the most advanced countries. And when I even compare America to my home country, the Philippines, I mean, they're ages ahead. And still, there are large percentages of people who are unhappy in the US. We have the freedom to be whoever we want to be, do basically everything, and in some aspects more than what you can in other countries, like the Philippines, for example. And yet people are taking advantage of it and using it for negative activities that could be more productive in more peaceful and positive directions than how they are handling things now. And in this country especially, there's so much more violence, turmoil, unrest, anxiety that this country is not going to get any better. And I feel that same way. It's hard continuously trying to see the positive in things when you keep turning on the news and you see that people are trashing traditions that should be peaceful. The transfer of one president to another should be peaceful. That's how it's been for almost 200 years. I think the last time that something like this happened was in the 1800s. So that's what shakes me, because if this hasn't happened since the 1800s, we're practically going backwards in terms of progression. I mean, these things shouldn't even be happening at all, especially at this time. And it goes outside of just what's going on in politics, in protests, and everything in the world right now. It goes with ourselves too. There's so much more pressure, especially because of social media, that one, we don't feel like we're worthy or we're enough for anything or anybody. And two, it's the pressure of making your life seem much less authentic than what it is. There's so much pressure on trying to make your life bougie on media, and you lose your authenticity of your life just because of social media and the fact that there's so much pressure and expectations from people and things that you don't think people will care about versus what you think more people will see on social media and like. And that's just one aspect of self-awareness, right? Even something as small as putting up a post on social media, what are your true motives behind it? Are you even aware to the fact that you're posting something for a specific reason? Are you just carelessly doing it? Are you posting it because you know that that's what people will press the like button for? Is it something that you actually are passionate about, or something that you're just posting because everyone else is? There isn't a more perfect time than right now to hear the cliche that your happiness comes from within, but it's so true. And unfortunately, it's so hard because, one, life gets so busy and you forget to be aware of your feelings, other people's feelings, your motives, and reasons why you're doing something that is more than just your selfish ambitions, your selfish wants and needs, rather than something that is bigger than life or bigger than just yourself, honestly. I mean, even just in our 20s, the early 20s, you have a career to focus on and that you're building, and that in itself is already a lot of work and it's really stressing. And you have building relationships and trying to save money and paying off all these bills. And there's so many things to worry about that ourselves is kind of at the bottom of the list. And honestly, for me, it should be higher up in that list. We definitely need to focus more on ourselves and how our actions will, in the end, affect people around us, and their actions will affect the people around them. And a lot of it is behind just the fact that our generation and even the next generation passes, but specifically for millennials, I think that selfish kind of mindset started really happening in that age group. And we forget a lot of times that everyone around us also has their own feelings and their opinions that they are in fact entitled to, but we forget that sometimes what we do, say, or think can hurt someone else. So that's why I challenge you guys to be more self-aware and just out of nowhere remind yourself that I want to be doing this for all the best reasons and not for my own selfish motives or not to hurt anybody else or go against a group of people or go against an idea or an opinion just because everybody else is doing it. And just because everybody feels a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way. And essentially, that's what's going on in our country, that there's a lot of separation that is hurting the Black community and minorities. It's definitely scary to see, especially because I myself am a minority. And just knowing that if this were to happen, as what's happening in the Black community to the Asian community, for example, or just any community, it's so sad and it breaks my heart to even wrap my head around that peaceful protesting in the Black community is getting the same, if not less, violence than how things were handled at Washington. It irks me so much, and that should be enough for everyone to realize that there is something wrong with this country. There's a lot wrong, and it needs to be fixed because, for example, the group that broke into the Senate building at Washington, they think that they have this kind of higher power over people, and that mentality is something that essentially will break this country from the inside out if it keeps persisting in this manner. So I want to make sure that people listening are still aware that our actions, as small as they can be, can cause a greater effect in the end. And the snowball effect, the Mandela effect, the butterfly effect, whatever the name is for how small actions can cause big problems or big events, I personally think that's true because everything that goes on in this world has an after effect, to me at least. And it may not be as large as some cases or some actions that happen, but there is always an after effect to something. And I truly believe that. I've seen it enough to know that it's real. And if anyone wants to talk about out of world things like the Mandela effect, like the snowball effect, the butterfly effect, I'm happy to talk about it because that is so interesting to me and kind of mind blowing that we don't really focus on, obviously, because life is so busy, but it's a thing. There are actions and events that affect actions and events after that. But yes, okay. Back to self-aware things. There are some things that I'm trying to do and focus on to help with self-awareness and incorporate more in my life. And the first thing is to be more open to how you're actually feeling, right? More often than not, I unfortunately like to tell people that I'm okay when I'm really not. And a lot of that comes behind the fact that I don't want to feel like a burden, or I don't want to bore people with my problems and issues to the point that I'd rather keep it to myself. And it's not just how I grew up, it's just the mentality of my culture, I guess, because in the Philippines, a lot of the mindset is we can handle every problem that is thrown at us. We don't need help from other people. And hence, that's why my grandfather doesn't really take medicine when he's feeling sick or something. And he doesn't seek medical help when he's sick. And thank God he manages to go through it every time. But something like that even gets passed down in generations. So I didn't really like to talk about my feelings, but I feel like that's something that I do need to work on because I don't let myself feel the things that I'm supposed to be feeling. I don't let myself have sadness or negative emotions. And I think it's so important to feel those things because it's like that saying. I don't know the exact saying, but you don't know what good is until you've experienced the bad. You don't know what positivity is until you've seen something negative and found something to be positive about. So, in that same aspect, you should let yourself feel sad. You should let yourself feel frustrated. You should let yourself feel mad. Those are feelings that you're allowed to have. And I think people in our generation definitely like to pretend that we're okay or use other methods to pretend that we're okay. So that could be something as simple as shutting people out and being by yourself and not really opening up to people. And it's not just something that's important for us to work on in our 20s. This is a good practice that you can also pass down to your kids so that the habit of hiding feelings don't follow into the next generation. And obviously, when one person does it, it's not going to change an entire generation, but at least you're setting yourself up for more positive thinking, not just for yourself, but something that you can teach in the future for future generations. Whether it's your kids, your niece, your nephew, it's all important to consider. And another thing that comes with being self-aware is noticing your own patterns and trends. And when I say that, it's realizing that your thoughts are based on what you allow yourself to see and absorb, right? So a good example is, again, with social media. And I think it's so crazy because, for example, if your social media, if your Instagram is full of people who only support being skinny, then you may see someone in the street and just think that, wow, they're overweight, but they're healthy and beautiful. And everybody is beautiful, skinny or not, just saying. But my problem is that media is so personalized per person that what I believe from media is even different from what my boyfriend believes or my sister or my friends. It depends on what we are exposed to. And I think that's crazy with media, right? Because there are so many different opinions that vary from everyone else's that exist in the country because of what they're exposed to and because of the media that is being provided to them. And it's honestly getting worse because I'm going to quote The Social Dilemma again with my sister from that episode. When you watch one video about puppies, right, the machine learning algorithms learn that, oh, you like puppies, so they're going to give you more videos of puppies. So if you watch videos of skinny people or have posts of skinny people, the algorithms will make sure that future posts or recommended posts, recommended accounts also follow exactly what you're looking at. So that's crazy to me because that is what's causing the split opinions, all the varying opinions and sides of what's going on in this country. And a lot of it comes behind people who are posting and not 100% telling the truth about things. It's very useful to start looking for resources that are more neutral in opinion and just give the truth. Why can't there just be posts and articles and news channels that just give the truth? Straight out truth. No opinion, no propaganda. I think it's crazy that that's how media has shaped us now. And anyway, again, back to being self-aware. Another practice that I'm trying to work on is to notice when you're being an asshole. And you don't really realize this sometimes because, for example, someone that you know says something that's a little offending, so you go and say something back that is even more offending. And you don't expect it, but what you say stays with that person and it negatively affects them for the rest of their life. It sounds dramatic, but it happens more often than not. More often than people actually realize. And that again ties into just being aware of what you're saying, being aware of how that person might react. And that's why it's also important to listen before you speak and think before you speak. A lot of people, including me, I don't really think before I speak most of the time, but I try to. I at least try to think of ways to respond or communicate with people that won't really hurt their feelings, but still get my point across or my opinion and have a constructive conversation with them. Because self-awareness is not just you being aware of yourself as a person, what you like, what you don't like, what triggers you, what is your main source of happiness, your relationships, what you expect from things. It's also partially how you understand how other people view you, and that ties into how your actions will affect other people. So a very difficult thing when it comes to self-awareness is looking at yourself exactly the same way that other people do. And that is a very hard thing to do in life. And it's not easy, but it starts by being active about it and engaging with yourself. It's a happy balance because if you have low self-awareness internally and a high external self-awareness, you're basically trying to look for approval from everybody. On the opposite side of that spectrum, if you have low external self-awareness and high internal self-awareness, you are happy with who you are, but you don't pay attention to your gaps, your challenges, or potential spots that you could work on. And that could, in the end, affect your relationships and the success of those relationships. And you really could come off as cocky, full of yourself, when really you're not. And I think that's a hard differentiation. It's hard to tell sometimes. And that's why it's important to get to know somebody before you just judge them by looks or by firsthand observation. And that ties into something else that is important for really good self-awareness, and that is nobody's perfect, not even yourself. Yes, you can be happy for who you are. Obviously, everybody's perfect in their own way, but everybody can definitely agree that there's something about themselves that they would like to work on, whether it's their fitness, their mental health, their focus on their children versus work. There's always something that you can improve within yourself. And why am I focused on self-awareness in our 20s? Well, having really good self-awareness is a very important quality when it comes to leadership. And it's not just being a leader in the workforce, it's also being a leader in your family, in your future family, being a good role model for your children or your coworkers or your employees that work for you. So it is an important quality when it comes to self-awareness to want to value what people think of you, but also loving yourself for who you are. It's a hard balance, but it starts with being active about it, like I said. And just because you have a lot of experience with people doesn't make you great at being self-aware. Don't get me wrong. There's a fine line with that because, again, like media, people can give you false information, and it's hard to root that out sometimes, especially when you've been around so many people, seen so much media. You don't know what's right from wrong sometimes. Therefore, it is important that we do our homework. We look for evidence that helps us understand the situation and not just assume that people feel a certain way about us or assume that you feel a certain way, but really get in connection with yourself as to why you are feeling a certain way and why you want to do something and what your true motives are behind that action. And that's why self-awareness is so hard, because it's not just your own viewpoint for yourself, but it's other people as well. And you have to find that balance between the two. It's a very difficult thing, but oftentimes people don't even pay attention to self-awareness. It is something super important, especially in our 20s, as we are finding ourselves to be aware of who we are as a person and how different we are from someone next to us or across from us or in another country for that matter. And when we continuously put ourselves in this mindset and awareness that we are different and unique from everyone else, and everyone is also different and unique from everyone else, you start to realize that everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, and that helps you in terms of being a leader, that you don't pick favorites. And I've seen a lot of companies with favorites, and I've even been in companies where I didn't feel like I belonged because there were favorites. And having something like that in the workforce is really uncomfortable because, again, you go back to feeling that you're not good enough for the job. And it's very stressful on a person, especially because this job is basically 40 hours of their entire week. And that is a lot in a week to be feeling like you're not enough. And another thing that helps to develop your self awareness and improve it, especially when we have the time to, is understanding your true ambitions behind your actions. Why are you doing this particular thing? And you don't have to question why you're taking a shower. Obviously, you're showering because you want to get clean or you want to relax. That's more of a smaller example, but a good example is this. Why are you cleaning the apartment? Do you want it to be clean, or do you want to prove a point to your significant other that you do more in the apartment and thus that's why you're doing everything without vocalizing that you need help getting things done in the apartment and would appreciate their time? That kind of thinking is not only self-destructive, but also destructive in a relationship because you can preach all you want to your friends and their relationships that they shouldn't be petty, but here you are basically doing the same thing. That is a part of what improving your self-awareness is. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen. Of course, we're people, we make mistakes, and it's going to happen sometimes where we do things for our own selfish reasons. But the more engaged we are in our thoughts and our own selves and understanding why we do things, it really goes a long way in the end. And personally, I think I've improved in that aspect. Not to brag, but I'm for real not bragging. But I'm pretty proud of the growth that I've had in terms of becoming more self-aware because there were so many times in the past where I really would get annoyed with somebody just because of what they say. And I would say something back just because I was annoyed and I didn't realize that they'd remember those things I say. And that really freaks me out because I don't want them to remember me as that one time. I am more than just what I said that specific day. And that's where self-awareness comes into play because, again, I didn't think before I spoke up. And now that I said it, I basically can't take it back because in the back of that person's head, I always said that. I always felt a certain way. I always had this opinion about this certain topic. And even though it wasn't what I really felt, I said it. So that also ties into play of just improving your self-awareness and improving yourself as a person. And, you guys know that saying, be true to yourself. A lot of hip-hop artists have said it. A lot of artists in general have used it in their songs, in poetry, in art in their own way. But it's really not easy to stay true to yourself if you truly don't understand who you are. And again, that's why I stress so hard that focusing on ourselves should be a higher priority than what it is right now. By understanding what your strengths are, what your limitations are, and how you feel about certain things and how you'll react to certain things, you have more opportunities that weren't there before. You can have more honest and genuine relationships with people because you know what you want and you know how you feel about things and you know what you're attracted to. And that also ties into picking the right people to be in your circle. Having the right people in your circle is so helpful for just improving yourself as a person and just being more self-aware about everything. If your friends can't even be upfront with you and tell you and help you become a better person, maybe they're not the best people that should be in your life because how they react to certain things also is what you see that you should react to things because this is what has been accepted in your friend circle. So you want to have these authentic people in your life that do provide an environment where you can feel like you can grow and you can feel comfortable in being yourself, whether or not it's something pretty or something ugly. And self-awareness is such an important topic for me because I just feel like our generation does not focus enough on our own thoughts because one, it's scary. Two, there's a lot of honest thoughts in there. And I've realized that especially in quarantine because I've literally have had nothing else to do but be in my thoughts. But that's when I realized that I do have social anxiety. I do feel like everyone's staring at me before I go to events. And now that I'm aware that I feel that way and that it happens, I now can understand when I'm feeling it and learn to control it. So, again, that ties into the opportunities that weren't available to me before, like I said. If I wasn't aware of how I was feeling, I would have just ignored it and just gotten drunk just because I felt weird. That's really not a good habit. And I've said it before that I really used to do that so I didn't feel uncomfortable. And instead of me thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get there, everyone's going to look at me, and what am I wearing and why I look like this, I am now thinking of more positive thoughts. And that's only happened because I was given the opportunity to really think about how I'm feeling. That's another thing I'm thankful about for quarantine and COVID. I just have more time to be present and understand myself. And another example of that is I would get mad over some things. And when I'm ranting to my friends, and my friends can vouch for this, I sometimes say, I don't know why I should even be feeling like this. I shouldn't. It's not right. And one of the best responses I got was, Philline, you have every right to feel that way, and you're entitled to your own emotions, even though they're negative. You have to allow yourself to feel that way so you can understand what to do next. And that was something super important to me. And that stayed with me since that person told me that. Because there's so many times where you feel like something negative is happening to your emotions and you're like, ugh, I don't want to feel this way. I'm just going to push it away, pretend that I'm happy, put my sunglasses on, drink a little bit, go a little crazy, and then 2 days later you forget how you feel. But truth of the matter is that feeling is still there. It's just being buried. And the more that you bury these types of emotions, you start to crack a little bit, one day at a time. And before you know it, these emotions are so buried and so squished that there's so much pressure that one day they just explode and you can't control it. And you either say something you regret, or you hurt someone's feelings, or you do something that you eventually regret in the future. Another reason why self-awareness is hard is because of society and media. There are so many tricks and lies from media that makes us think that specific things are meaningful in life. For example, being rich, having nice cars, having Gucci bags and high class clothing, and buying things that you don't necessarily need. And that's what's even worse, is because everyone's looking at this media, right? So there's always this general expectation that you have to be rich to be happy. You have to have high class things to be happy. And because of that, not only are you feeling pressured from media telling you what you should be, but everyone around you is also pressuring you. I think it's just a very twisted, indirect influence that exists between everybody in this country without everyone really realizing it. And I think that's crazy. It can be harmful to someone's own happiness, and you're not even aware of it. So I say this in the nicest way, but fuck what media thinks and fuck what everyone expects you to think. You want to decide what you want in your life, what you believe, and stay true to yourself. And I think that's something hard, but you have to continuously work on that, because it's the only way you're going to get out of your head and out of that anxiety, out of that depression. When you can tell yourself that you're happy with who you are, what you believe in, what you stand for, that is what's meaningful in life. What you feel, how you portray that to people, what you stand for, the things that make you happy, that's what's important in life. And cleaning the apartment, or liking one thing or one video or one game, or liking something more than something else just to please someone else, is something that will negatively affect you in the end. And that is where self-awareness comes in, because the more you can improve your self-awareness, the more you can figure out your core values, because it's going to be different from other people. And that's why so many people are like, oh, every parent is not the same, but every parent is not the wrong parent. I mean, obviously there's wrong parents, but we're going to get past that. But there are different parenting styles that work. And that's the same thing with life in general. There are different core values that work. And it really depends on you as a person and what you want from the life that you're creating. And this self awareness ties into relationships because if you truly do not know what makes you happy, who you are, that is going to reflect upon your relationships, and the relationships around you will be struggling, they'll be rocky, and you won't really know what you want from relationships because you never had the time to have that discussion with yourself about what you want from relationships and what you expect from your significant other and how you expect them to be when you have a family. These are important thoughts, especially in our 20s. Life is going to get serious soon, and these are important. If you haven't discussed with your significant other things like habits and what we want from life, what if what you want from life isn't what they want from life? And you don't realize it until you're already married. I mean, these are conversations that are super important, especially in serious relationships. But everything, just like life, self-awareness is not a flick of the wrist, a flip of the switch. It's not going to happen right away, but that's the best part about it. It's growing and learning from everything going on in life and just applying it to your life and not just seeing something and letting it pass by. And I think that's important because for people who are seeing what's going on in the country and really want a change to happen, it needs to be done, but with also a self-awareness of yourself and how people are and might react to things. And having that awareness is extremely important, especially for reaching out to specific groups or trying to get a population's attention for something. Again, it's not as easy as a flick of a switch, but if you continuously choose to actively engage in improving self-awareness, it helps. And once you're aware of your strengths and weaknesses, you can understand your best direction on handling anything that life throws at you. People handle everything so differently from the person next to them, and it all comes down to what you are comfortable with and the best way that you can handle things. And again, it's just so crazy to me because it basically is actively shifting your thoughts and gently just changing your attention and behavior and motives to the way that you want it to be, and that it brings a positive effect, not just for yourself, but the people around you. And the sooner you do it and the more you do it, it actually becomes easy to do and actually quite fun. I found myself in better situations and handling situations better just because I was aware that I was feeling a certain way and making it a better habit of just reflecting and thinking about the best way that I can handle something. It's constantly making the active decision to let go of negative thoughts, let go of negative thinking, and look towards the future of having better actions, better motives, better thoughts, and feeding yourself emotionally with positive things that you yourself make yourself happy and not other people. And even a small thing like that really helps you improve your relationship with yourself to the fact that you won't need to rely on anybody else for your own self-happiness. And that's important too. It happens a lot where you have to lean on somebody, especially in your 20s, because we can't stand the fact of being lonely and having to deal with our thoughts because we hate to be by ourselves. And once we do that, we can kind of understand, one, not just our own feelings and how we react to things. Two, not just how other people react to things, but low key, you start to realize that you yourself played some part in some negative events that happened in your past without you even realizing it. For example, a good one is that an old relationship or friendship that you had, you thought that it was the other person's fault because they were always bringing you down mentally, verbally. And for me, when that happened, I knew that it wasn't just the other person's fault for making this type of friendship or relationship where I felt like I was the lower person and not an equal. It was me not being proactive with how I felt, shutting down how I felt, even though I was sad, and just accepting it and telling myself exactly what that other person was telling me, that I'm not worth it, that whatever it was. But I did play a part in it because I wasn't strong enough and I didn't make myself speak up. And there's things like that that I have to realize, that helped me grow as well. I was just self-aware that, now I know when someone's comment is bringing me down, and now I know when to communicate that to the person and let them know that, hey, what you said actually hurt my feelings, and I wouldn't have known that if I didn't experience it. And the final thing that comes with self-awareness is when we understand ourselves, we kind of can realize that things will only improve if we want it to improve. That's something so big that I've learned to realize, not just during quarantine/COVID, but everything in the past 5-6 years, that I've realized that if I want things to change, it'll only change if you want it to change and you make a change about it. If you do the action to improve what you want to improve in life and what you want to attain in life, you will get there. You'll start to realize and understand your own thoughts and become close with yourself and really understand what you want from life. Then you can kind of break out of this cycle of reacting a certain way to a certain event or reacting to how someone treats you. And now you're kind of more aware on previous patterns and grow from it and not react the same way as you did before to give the same results. And this type of thought has helped me really to see the positive in everything, in everyone, and understand that nobody's perfect, but they're all great people. And I'm definitely grateful for the time that I've had with myself to come to terms that nobody's perfect, not even myself. And it's been so amazing, and it's definitely still a journey. So I hope you guys learned a few things from this episode and apply it to just your life in general, and hopefully make a change about some things you're not happy about and just reconnect with yourself, because you are so important. I literally stress that like every other episode, but you are so important. And hopefully, as these episodes go on and this year goes on, the world gets a little bit better, because we all need more positivity in life. And I hope that unity starts to come back, and equal rights and equal treatment of people. I hope that comes back. And now that everything's kind of coming to light and everybody's understanding now what's going on in this country in terms of what is separating certain groups of people, I hope that there is more change. And I'm feeling good about it, because now that we realize it, there are more things that are starting to be in people's attention that are so important for people to understand and make a change in this country. So thank you guys for listening, and I hope you learned a few things about self-awareness and actively make that choice to continuously make yourself a better person. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like to talk about, please feel free to reach out to me, DM me at Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. My Instagram is at Philline Podcast, FELINPHILLINE, and my Twitter is Philline, and my TikTok is the same as my Instagram. And that is it, guys. Till next time. Bye.